Hey y'all, and welcome to a second slice of Santiago de los Caballeros, the heartland city here in the Dominican Republic. Today, we're going to take a look at the following four sections. First, I want to continue to help you to understand the diversity and robustness of the Dominican Republic by demonstrating how the booming tourism industry in DR is in fact just one small section of this nation's economy. That is before we take a look at the three major regions of the country, and then focus in on the one in which Santiago lies. We'll learn about some of the features that make Santiago's region unique in the country before zooming in on Santiago itself. Next, we'll learn a bit about how the layout of the city compares to other Spanish cities in the Americas, before getting a bird's eye view of the region with some breathtaking footage that I've gotten a hold of that will help us to get a better idea of what the Cibao Valley, where Santiago lies, looks like. We're also going to learn a bit about where the city of Santiago de los Caballeros gets its unique name. After that, we're going to zoom in on a landmark of the historic city center that's a great place to go to for souvenirs such as works of local craftsmanship or a prime feature of the market, jewelry utilizing two gemstones, one of which is stunning, said to look like the sea, and that happens to only be found in the Dominican Republic. Finally, we're going to be trying some of my favorite Dominican culinary delights, one of which is made with the flour created from a tuber similar to yuca or sweet potato, but that you've probably never heard of, despite it making for a nice, crispy, and hearty pastry, such as for meat-filled patties. All right, y'all, let's get to it. Last time, we touched on a number of things, such as the fact that the Dominican Republic lies on the island of Hispaniola with Haiti in the west and DR in the east. When it comes to DR, there are a number of lenses that we can use to understand the country. For example, within DR, last time we touched on something of a schism between the coast and the interior of this country due to a strong emphasis on promoting tourism from the 1970s to the 1990s. By the way, I would point out that while that did help the coast to develop, and the resorts therein to do the same, there's really much, much more to DR than just tourism. To emphasize this point, last time we learned both that the economy is booming and that the nation is projected to experience explosive growth over the course of the 2020s. On top of this foundation, I would now add the following, which I suspect many of you will find surprising. In 2018, a pre-pandemic high of 5.6 million visitors was attained. In the wake of the pandemic, in 2023, that figure exploded to 10.3 million. Despite this extraordinary growth, the tourism industry now only accounts for 8.03% of the nation's GDP, and that is down from 19.2% in 2001. This is all further evidence that the rest of the economy is surging, as it is causing this exploding sector to represent an increasingly smaller percentage of the economy as a whole. So, while tourism is important, particularly for coastal communities in the country, it is by far the whole picture. It's also crucial that I point out that Santiago, the second largest city in the country and fourth largest in the entire Caribbean, is not a coastal city. And this is quite unusual, specifically given the fact that it is the second largest city on an island, and it's separated from the nearest coast by a mountain range. With this context in mind, let's take a step back so that we can start to understand a bit more about the Dominican Republic and the region where Santiago lies. In an effort to better understand the Dominican Republic, it's useful to know that it can be divided up in a number of ways. For example, instead of states, there are 31 provinces, but the country also has three primary regions that it is commonly divided up into, and that Dominicans use on a regular basis. These three regions are the East, South, and North. Santiago de los Caballeros lies in the North, which is also simply called the Cibao for the Cibao Valley that predominates the region. These three regions are a useful lens to use in trying to better understand the country, as there are some general differences between the three regions. For example, in the East, they tend to use coconut more in their cooking. Another distinguishing feature is what the speakers of the accents of the Spanish spoken in the East versus in the North do with the letters R and L, such as in the word hablar, which means to speak, as in I want to learn to speak Spanish. Those from the east tend to turn R's into L's. Meanwhile, in the north, as there were different immigrants to this region over the centuries, such as from Portugal, so instead, those from this region tend to turn both R's and L's into I's. So, for example, the verb for to speak, hablar, is pronounced as hablar in the east versus hablai in the north. As to an example of an L being turned into an I, in the north, the word for something, which is algo in standard Spanish, is pronounced as algo in northern Dominican Spanish. Another notable difference between the two regions is found in their physical geography. The east is flatter, while the north is dominated by the Cibao Valley, with mountain chains on either side, which, while it is home to the most fertile land in the country, making it great for growing crops, in the east, the flatter land makes it a great place to raise cattle, for example. Let's take a look at the Cibao itself now. The fertile valley, made so fertile, in part, thanks to the ample access to the rivers that it has due to the Yaque del Norte, Camu, and Yuna rivers that pervade the region. When the Spaniards came to the Americas, when looking for a place to establish a city, they often would look for a body of water. They would also use very similar layouts for their cities that they established nearby said body of water, and this can be observed in Santiago. Its historic city center has a grid network with a church alongside a plaza that sits by a body of water, in this case the Yaque del Norte River. Remember, though, that Santiago sits at the heart of a valley with a chain of mountains to the north and south. The mountain chain to the north meant that the city was not the most accessible, but again, it does sit at the center of the valley where the most fertile land in the country is found, and that is pervaded by rivers. Hence, while it may not have been a very accessible tourist destination until its airport opened in 2002, it was nonetheless a center of economic activity. To help us to get a better look at what the geography in the area looks like, I went and took a flight to help us to get a bird's eye view. Hopefully, we will get a better idea as to how involved it would have been to cross those mountains previously to get back and forth between Santiago and the coast. As you can see, the region is quite mountainous, which means that it must have been quite the journey to get to the coast back when horses were the only real option, aside from going on foot. This land that we're looking at now is the Cibao Valley itself. And for reference, Cibao, or Cibao, meaning Stone Mountain, was actually a name used for the island itself by the inhabitants that Columbus came into contact with, who were called the Taino. It was the Spanish that later took the name and applied it to the valley. Speaking of names, if you've ever looked at a map of Spain and its former colonies, you may have noticed that there are a lot of Santiagos. There's a Santiago de Compostela in Spain, a Santiago in Cuba, Santiago de los Caballeros in the Dominican Republic, a Santiago that's the capital of Chile, and even multiple Santiagos in the Philippines. Santiago de los Caballeros stands out in this group, though, as this city's name is noticeably longer than the rest. So, what does it mean? It turns out that Santiago is the Spanish name for St. James, who was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus, who happens to be the patron saint of Spain, and whose remains lie in Santiago de Compostela, in the province of Galicia in Spain. It seems like a logical conclusion that St. James being the patron saint of Spain is an important reason for why it shows up so much. As to how the St. James became Santiago, the original Hebrew name for James was Jacob, which was adopted to Latin as Jacobus. Over time, this became Iago in Spanish. The saint in St. James is Santo in Spanish, and putting the two parts together, you get Santo Iago, with the O in Santo getting dropped at some point, and thus leaving us with Santiago. So, if Santiago just means St. James, what about that de los Caballeros part? Well, in 1495, Christopher Columbus established a Fort Santiago in the area, which led to a colony where 30 knights of the Order of St. James the Elder, who had come from La Isabela, along the coast to the north, settled, and the city was named for them when the settlement was later moved in 1515. Thus, we get Santiago de los Caballeros, which in English is literally translated as St. James of the Knights. By the way, 2 additional facts. Another name for the city is Santiago de los 30 Caballeros, or St. James of the 30 Knights. And La Isabela was the first stable Spanish settlement in the Americas. If you like history, you should check out La Isabela. As we're getting a first look at Santiago's history with this second slice of Santiago, let's take an actual look at a part of the historic city center. Often nearby that body of water by the plaza and church found in cities in the Spanish Empire in the Americas, there is typically a market. Santiago just so happens to have one called Mercado Modelo along its primary avenue for shopping, which is the Calle del Sol, the Street of the Sun. Mercado Modelo, at present, is essentially a jewelry and souvenir market. In addition to purchasing souvenirs or jewelry, you can also get jewelry repaired at an affordable price. This is also a great place to come as there are local works of art and handicrafts available for purchase. In this market, you'll find that there are 2 gemstones featured heavily in the jewelry available. One is amber, and the other is larimar, which is only found in the Dominican Republic. Specifically, this stone is found in the area around where the city of Barahona lies, on the southern coast of the island to the southwest of the capital in the south region. Where did this name larimar come from, though? If you speak some Spanish, then the word probably makes you think of the sea, as mar means sea. Well, purportedly the name larimar was given to the stone when it was rediscovered in the 1970s. The lari in larimar comes from Larissa, the name of the daughter of one of those that named it, and combining it with the Spanish mar, again, meaning sea, is how they came up with the name. Why name it after the sea, you may ask? Well, the stone typically is a shade of light blue that is said to look like the Caribbean Sea, though it can also be found in stunning shades of blue-green to green, or even purple as well. Now, with that aside, jewelry made from larimar and amber, which are typically set in silver, are a specialty of this market. If you like the aesthetic of these pieces, you should definitely stop by here to purchase some. The market itself also happens to be surrounded by your typical jewelry stores, so there's a lot of variety on offer here. As to the market itself, it's like a beehive of stalls and shops where you can find larimar and amber jewelry for sale at affordable prices. It's also a great place to get jewelry repaired, as I've mentioned, but I want to emphasize that they will repair items right there in just minutes. Again, at an affordable price, and they may well do it right before your very eyes. If you would like a different clasp, etc., you can get it changed out in a matter of minutes. This market has also clearly adapted over the years to become a kind of one-stop market for local specialties. That's why it's a great place to pick up souvenirs. So, if you're looking for some local Dominican handicrafts to take home at a reasonable price, this area is a good place to check out as they have souvenirs galore. DR and Santiago t-shirts, local instruments, and more. Now that we've gotten a look at the historic city center itself and some fantastic jewelry, let's take a look at some local culinary favorites of mine. Today, we've got some empanadas as well as naboa. Now, I suspect it is possible that you've heard of empanadas, though these empanadas are likely a bit different from what you're used to. However, most of you have probably never heard of naboa. Naboa and empanadas are similar in that they are more or less the same in the sense that they both consist of a pastry on the outside and a filling on the inside that is typically held onto as you enjoy it. They differ in that empanadas are typically crescent-shaped, no larger than your hand, and the exterior pastry is most often made with wheat flour, though other flours such as yuca flour are also used sometimes. Naboas, by contrast, are bigger, shaped more like a tube, and they specifically use mapue flour. I suspect that most people have never heard of mapue before, but mapue, also called ñame, among other names in Spanish, is a tuber similar to yuca or taro that is cultivated like a potato where it is used for food in the Caribbean and Central and South America, and that can be boiled, or in this case, ground into a flour that makes for a delightfully flaky and crispy yet hearty pastry. As to the manner that they're cooked, empanadas are typically pan-fried, deep-fried, or baked, while naboas are fried. Now, here in this bag, I've got culinary delights that I'm going to try. Check this out. This is the naboa, and here's an empanada that I'm going to try shortly. All right, y'all. Here we have a naboa. Check this out. Oh, check it out. It even has naboa written right there. I don't know if y'all can see that. You know what? Wow, this thing is heavy. It's got some heft to it. Look, and it has a fragrance. I don't know, very, very unique. It's like bread. It is bread. I mean, the smell. But it's not the same. Let me tell you, it's not the same as regular bread. It smells very nice. Mmm. The outside's very crunchy. It's like it has layers. And as you can see, it has layers of dough on the outside that make it very crunchy. You can like feel the layers as you bite into it, but it's creamy in a sense. Well, it's very hearty. You can see it's really packed, right? That's chicken inside. Wow, it's like chock full of chicken. And it has onion. It has a flavor of that, anyways. Very good, very tasty. This is heavy and very filling, very hearty. Wow, this is the first time that I've had a chicken naboa, and it is just packed, like really jam-packed with chicken. Jesus Christ. The filling is so much. I'm just like taken aback. All right, here we have an empanada, Dominican style specifically, and the filling on this one is beef. Let's see. First, look, the outer layer of the dough has like a hole there. It has some layers to it. But from the outside, it's like it falls apart, but it comes off very easily. It's like really flaky. The dough on the outside tastes really good. It's got a little bit of a sweetness to it. It's got great flavor. Wow, but the filling to it, it's got like a good, like a spiced fragrance that I am just loving. It smells like it has at least onions in there. Let me see. This empanada, it got bigger, so it has like a big hole on the inside, and all the filling kind of fell to one side. Like, I mean, it all fell into one corner of the empanada. But, well, I mean, you can see for yourself that it fell. Anyways, the filling, it's ground beef with grated carrot, and it looks like it has grated onion in there too. But there's not as much onion as carrot. It tastes really good. I thought they told me it was spicy though, but no, if it is spicy, it's like, I don't know, it's like barely even there. Just like, it would be just like a tiny hint of spice. Not much. Very good flavor though. I highly recommend this. For me, I tried another one of these before and it was spicy. They either used, black peppercorn or just some ground black pepper to make it. I always had some great flavor to it. And what I will say is that one, like these empanadas, but especially that one, it's like the Dominican answer to the Jamaican beef patty, which, in my experience, it's commonly spicy. So this is a little different though, and I'm not gonna lie, I really like this. It tastes good, great flavor, nice fragrance, good mouth feel. And likewise, the Naboa, oh my goodness, highly recommend that. That was fantastic. All right, y'all. That about wraps it up for this second slice of Santiago. But I would ask that you please watch this video to the end, as there is a bonus of local ambiance coming up right after this. But first, remember, the goal here with these slices of Santiago is to help you gain a better understanding of this metro area of Santiago de los Caballeros. Its people, their culture, food, is the region growing or declining, and how, and more with each successive slice that you enjoy. You can't encapsulate a city, much less a metro area, into just one video without it taking up an inordinate amount of time. So just remember to take a look at that first video if you haven't already, and to keep an eye out for future iterations where we will delve deeper into Santiago de los Caballeros and its metro area. Just to be clear, today we're building on the foundation laid in the first slice of Santiago, so if you missed that first video, if you feel like watching it again and then following up with this one again to help get a more comprehensive take on Santiago, then please do so now. I would very much appreciate it. For reference, or just as a reminder, in the first video we, 1, dispelled misconceptions about the Caribbean, and DR by extension, by demonstrating how there are more people down here in the Caribbean than in any single US state, and how there's a lot more going on than just tourists visiting tropical beach resorts. After that, we, 2, learned why it is that most haven't heard of Santiago de los Caballeros until recently. Then 3, we learned about the first step in the Santiago 2025 plan that has been implemented earlier this year to help provide alternate means for people to travel about the city, means that enable the citizens to not have to get stuck in the daily morass of traffic jams that are not uncommon in historic cities boasting large populations. Finally, 4, we ended, as I love to, by learning a bit about some local culinary delights, trying them, and seeing how one of them, called Yaroa, is made. Yaroa was invented here in Santiago, by the way, and it has exploded in popularity over the course of the past 10 to 15 years or so. If you haven't checked out the first slice of Santiago, again, please do so. If you'd like to try the Yaroa featured in that video, please find a link in the description. Before we get to that local ambiance, I just want to mention that I do have a Patreon page set up, so if you feel like you'd like to see more content about Santiago or just more content like this, then please consider becoming a member and supporting me in this endeavor. Please find the link to my Patreon page in the description below this video. Finally, remember to share this video with family and friends, and to like and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. I thank you all for watching. Take care now. Stay curious. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.